Hi, everybody. Scott Dillon here from Solace, and welcome to Module 3, Module 4. I'm not sure where it fits in the scheme of things, but you're early in the process, and this particular module is all about business process automation. Specifically, how can you event enable a business process within the tool set? So if you think about things like inventory low, or a sales order that has been modified, or a work order that has just been created with a high priority incident, all of these things represent events. And so for a business user that would be using the business process automation tooling, when they go in and they see the canvas, and specifically they look into the event lobby, they'll be able to see the events for which they can now create a extension that will automatically be triggered in response to that event. And I guess it's worth noting that the events can be from SAP or non-SAP. So if you had a factory floor where production was running on a machine and that machine would trigger an event, that event could be responded to or reacted to by a business process automation task, as an example, or a business rule for that matter. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen and give you a glimpse of what you're going to be implementing yourself as part of this exercise. So here is the advanced event mesh sitting in the middle. And up until this point, we've covered off using the UI5 applications. You're able to get events in. We've been talking about the event portal where you can find the events and see the schema and things like that and deploy your configuration. So part of this exercise will be, yes, to deploy the configuration, but then to understand and work with the business process automation tooling to react to that event and then be able to respond with some sort of action. And so in the world of managing material records, one of the things that we've done here, and it's a very simple project, you're bringing a piece of master data into your world. You want to be able to have the ability to review it and approve it, or put governance on it before it actually goes in. So in this particular case, we'll receive the event for a business partner, and that business partner will be reviewed inside the business process automation inbox. And then from there, you can see that this arrow is bi-directional. So you'll bring it in and then you'll basically hit the approve and you'll push it back. So there's a few things that need to happen in the world of AEM in order to make this all kind of work. First of all, the business process automation service that is running on BTP, they expose an API for customers to use to generate this instance of the business process automation workflow task. And so what's going to happen, what we want to do is be able to bring the events in and call that API for each event. And then this will generate the instance of the workflow that we're interested in. So within the advanced event mesh, we have something called an RDP, a rest delivery point. And so what happens basically is you create a queue. This queue, which will be created, by the way, from the event portal, you'll push the configuration for this particular application. And then the queue will have on top of it what is referred to as a rest delivery point with a corresponding configuration. So in other words, something comes into the queue, and for every entry that goes into the queue, you'll be calling this API, and this API will then create the instance of an instance of the workflow inside the inbox, because we're doing an approval workflow. So if I pop back to here and just kind of give you a quick look at the business process automation software, we're going to give you a project that you're going to be uploading. And so this project is called the Business Partner Review Project. So if I just quickly click on that, we'll open it up. It's very simple. It's only 2 steps still. At least you know how it works. So you'll see here, you've got a process and you have a form. So what we did for you, which you won't have to do, there's just basically a form that's been created. The form is empty, but it has all the corresponding fields that match with the business partner that's being received as an event. So that's piece number one. Piece number two is the actual business partner review process. So we'll take a look at that. It's very simple, but you'll see here the very top component is referred to as a trigger. And the trigger in this case, which it clearly spells out, is a cloud event. So in other words, for a business user, when they come in here and they go, okay, I got a couple of different trigger types, one's an API, one's an event. Whenever this event happens and is exposed on top of the advanced event mesh, this process will be triggered. It's really that simple. And so in here, there's a two-step process that we're looking at. Approve or reject. So in the case of an approve, the user will push the approve button, they hit approve, and then a copy of the event with a new topic that's being published on will be pushed back to the advanced event mesh to say, it's been approved. Now you can take basically further action by attaching other services to that particular event type, which is an approved business partner. So that's kind of how that works. But then the question might be, well, how do I see what's available in terms of an event? So if I just go back here to the lobby, you'll see underneath connectors, you'll see events right here. So if I click on events, you'll see we've got a little repository of events growing. But the idea is there's a create button here. And we've done this in advance. And when you hit the create, you're going to have three options. But one of them is the import of a flat file that has the description of the event. So the good news is here is that it can be a SAP event or a non-SAP event, but it has to conform to the cloud event spec. But once you have it, you bring it in, you then have the event displayed here, and then you can use it as a business partner, as a business user in any of the scenarios, any of the extensions that you would use to keep the core clean, as simply as just specifying which event you want to react to. So that's where that sits. And now if I just show you one last thing, which is the BP create. So going back to the first module, here's the BP create screen. So when I hit the submit, you can see here that the event shows up in this consumer block. But if I go back quickly to the SAP build, you can see here, there's an icon on the top right-hand side called My Inbox. So if you go to My Inbox, which I've already got opened, and now if I do the refresh on this, it's going to load up that one event that we had. And I was being a bit funny. I used the words Santa Claus, so you would see that it's real. So we've got Santa Claus as being considered as a new business partner in the landscape, and then I could hit approve and that would take care of it. So on the BPA side, just one or two other things to highlight before I pop over to the advanced event mesh and show you a few things there. One of the things you might notice, just going back here for 1 second, excuse me, here. On the top of the screen, it says RPP V2 Business Partner Review Editable. So if you click the drop down, you'll see that there's editable and there's deployed. So you just need to be careful because sometimes when you do the release, you might end up in a version of the project that you can't make changes to. So if you happen to be, as an example, let me pick one of the other ones. If you said deployed, if you're looking at this screen and then you try to make a change to it, you can't. So this is the latest deployed version. So you have to pick the editable version, go back here, make some changes, and then do the release to update that. So just be careful. Sometimes people, when they're doing the workshops in the past, would say things like, oh, I can't get access to the project. I can't change it. It's probably because you're not in the editable version. So that's one thing to take into consideration. The next thing I would like to show you is on the broker side. So even though most of this will be done for you when you deploy from the portal, the question is, how do we get the setup done such that, sorry, I got timed out there. Let's go over here, go to manage, go to clients. The question is, how do we get the setup done in such a way that whenever an event is coming in, we can just make the call to this BPA endpoint so that it creates the instance. So underneath REST, you will see one client here called RDP. And when you select it, you're going to see there's 6 pieces. And so this is important because sometimes in our previous workshops, and I suspect as you're walking through the material, you see there's a bunch of pieces here. It's not just one piece, and the operational state is up. In order for this operational state to say up, the 3 pieces, the REST consumer, the queue, and the queue binding, also have to be up. So if you did something wrong, as an example, let's say your REST consumer wasn't configured properly, the OAuth authentication scheme, you didn't provide a secret or something like that. Well, if this one doesn't come up, it won't work, number one. Number two, this is a really common thing that we see sometimes. You'll notice here where it says enabled on off. Sometimes people just forget to enable it. So don't forget to enable that there. And then what you can see in the host here, now this is going to be specific to your environment, but it's the host name of the URL that's being called for the BPA service to create that instance. And so just pay attention. It's all in the handout you're going to get, but the port's important. The HTTP method is important. Obviously, the client credentials in terms of the OAuth information is important, and you can get those from your BTP instance. The other last point, as you'll see here, the queue. So there is a queue that is specified for this. So what we see here is a topic. So in other words, the topic is saying to the queue, here are the entries, here are the events that I'm interested in having inside the queue. So it's basically subscribing to SAP Business Partner Creation Request Mapped. And then you see the greater than symbol means everything that matches that follows after the V1. And then so you'll have all these events flowing into the queue. And for each one that comes in, it's going to be calling the API to create the instance. So normally it's pretty quick. Within 1 or 2 seconds, you'll have that. The one thing I would say to you is if we go here, you need to make sure, this is like the second most popular place where people get, wrapped around the axle, is you need to have the content type specified. The content type and the webhook request origin, these both need to be there. And if they're not, again, you'll fail to see the operational state as up and running. So keep that in the back of your mind. Make sure you check for a couple of things like enabled, make sure the host is right, make sure you have the right subscription to bring those entries in, and that should do it. So what should happen is the UI5 event should be processed by the advanced event mesh, and then within the advanced event mesh, it should then be, it should be picked up by the SAP BPA solution. You should see it in the inbox, and from the inbox, once you hit approve, it should be pushed back to the mesh for further processing. AKA, we want to have now the applications being updated with this new material data, new business partner data. Anyway, that's it for now. Over and out, and we'll see you in the next module. Thank you.